Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Danielle McNamara, and I work for the MESA statewide office. We're based in Oakland, California, and we are happy to have everyone here for our MESA Community Convo with alumni Anré Williams, which is also going to be moderated by Anita Gage, another alum. I want to go through some logistics first, and then we can get started. Again, please rename yourself with your first name, last name, and affiliation, whether that's your campus or your company or your organization. Uh, we want we want to see everyone's beautiful faces, so please turn those videos on. That was actually a request from Anre. He wants to see everyone, be able to engage with folks, not just a name or an icon on there. This is going to be kind of free flowing, and Anita's going to talk about how everything is going to work, but we're happy to take questions in the chat. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. There's also going to be opportunity to take yourself off of mute and ask questions as well. And with that, I want to introduce Anita Gage. Anita is very happily retired from Intel Corporation. She worked there for about 28 years, and before that, she was at Xerox Corp in Rochester, New York. She has a BS in mechanical engineering from San Diego State. Where are the San Diego State folks in the house, if we have any? And she has a master's in engineering management and industrial engineering from the Rochester Institute of Technology in New York. She now lives in San Jose and likes to spend her all of the free time that she has helping MESA. She is on our industry advisory board and has been a MESA champion for many, many years. And we are happy to have her. And I'll turn it over to you, Anita.
Thank you, Danielle. I really appreciate that. So, hello, everybody. Let's have some fun today. So, just make sure you take out your notebooks, your iPads, your phones, or whatever to take some notes because he's going to definitely drop a lot of nuggets of wisdom. And as Danielle said, we will take questions from the chat, but we might even ask you to come off mute to ask him a question yourself. I see that some people have put themselves on a camera. So thank you very much. That was a request from him. So for the rest of you guys, please make sure to do that because he will not answer your question if he can't see you. Um, so a little bit about Anre. Anre is currently a senior executive advisor for American Express. He's been one of the chief architects for the company's success over the course of his impressive 35-year career at American Express. Most recently, Anre he was CEO of American Express National Bank and Group President, Enterprise Service in this role as CEO of the American Express National Bank, he oversaw all aspects of American Express's U.S. banking operations, which is responsible for over 60% of the company's total revenue. That's huge. The organizations he's oversaw comprise approximately 2/3 of the company's total workforce. So he's a big deal, y'all. He's a big deal. He's also a member of the American Express Executive Committee. He is on the Wharton Board of Advisors, the U.S. Track and Field Foundation Board, and also the board of MACRO. He previously served on the boards of ITW and Rizsun,
Ryerson.
Ryerson. He has his bachelor's from Stanford and his MBA from Wharton School of Business and from the University of Pennsylvania. So without further ado, we want to welcome you to our session today. So let's start off with a couple easy questions. So I know I just read your bio. I probably struggled through it, but I want to know in your own words, who are you? Who are we bringing in today? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself in your own words in terms of who you are and what shaped the person that you are today?
Sure. Thank you for the introduction. Very happy to be here as a former MESA student and as an alum of the program. when people ask me, the stuff in my bio is all true, but when people ask me who I am, I tell them I'm a person from Oakland, California, that grew up in a single parent household, that went to public school until I went to college, and very fortunate to have gotten out and been able to make a productive life for myself and my family. That's the way I introduce myself.
Okay. I think that's good. Tell me about some of the early influences that shaped who you were, not just getting to college, but getting through college and things like that. Like, what are some of the things that, like from growing up, did you have role models within your household? And if not, what helped you change that generational mindset to be who
Well,
you became?
I think everybody, in order to get into college and to get through college, it takes some inspiration someplace, because it's not always easy to do, always easy to finance, easy to do the applications, go through the classes. Everything it takes in order to get through a career, to get your degree, is not a simple task for many people. And for me, I grew up not really knowing anyone in my family that had gone to college for 4 years, maybe to community college, but not for 4 years to get a degree. And and when I saw others and saw what was possible, I thought maybe it was something that I could do, maybe. And I always looked for other people who were doing something that I thought I might like to do. And I would think about one person in my neighborhood, really young, was a gentleman he was an accountant. They had a tax preparation agency on the corner of my house. He was a Black man, had his own business, would work late hours. And I just respected him because he was so diligent. My mother would go to him for support sometimes to get her taxes done or make copies made or whatever else was happening. And so I just thought he was a pillar of strength in the community. And so I looked up to people, like that. There was a guy who lived across the street from me. He went to USC. I thought he was always studious, and he went away to college. It was a really big deal in the neighborhood because he was going to SC from Oakland. So there were just different people that I thought were, doing well for themselves to get out of the neighborhood to further their education so they can have a productive career.
Okay. How did you get affiliated with MESA?
I started with MESA in the eighth grade. For those of you who I don't know who are MESA alums, I went to public school in Oakland, went to a school called McChesney Junior High. Now it's known as Edna Brewer Middle School, I think it is. Well, Edna Brewer was my principal back then, before she passed away,
Wow.
and the school was renamed for her. So I know exactly what that school is about, because it's about Edna Brewer, who was my principal. So, and I remember one day, very specifically, in eighth grade, it got a little slip that said there's this program that you could go to, and you can get out of class, and you can go and spend a session there and go see what it was about. And when I went there, I found out that it pulled out a lot of the kids of color who got good grades. That's what I saw in the room when I was there. And there were friends I knew who were there. And there were college students who were in the room. It was about mathematics, engineering, and science achievement. And so you're in the eighth grade, you're getting good grades, but do you know what it's like to go to college and what it would take for you to get there? And there were college students who were there who were to talk to us. And I thought that was a really good thing. And so I agreed to go once a week, I think it was, or every 2 weeks, I forget. But that's why I got affiliated with MESA.
Okay. And then the people, your friends who you grew up with and you hung out with, were they also in MESA, or did you have to change your friendship groups? Or did you just have different friendship groups for the MESA part versus the people you used to hang out with, people you grew up with? How was that
So
experience?
there was a mixture. Some of people I knew really well were in the MESA program, and then there were some people I hung out with or friends with who were not part of the program at all. So it was kind of like this little group of people who were plucked from different classes to go to this session once every week or two to learn about going to college and what it takes and what applications and all of that. So it was a smaller group, but there are a good group of people that I knew, most of which I knew, but some I got to know a lot better.
Okay. Okay, so that's great. That's your formulative years. Let's
Yeah.
talk about college a little bit. So, going through MESA, which is a STEM program, and you went to school, I don't think you necessarily major in the STEM field, but you went into business, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So what made the switch, and how was
Well,
that decision-making process for
let
you?
me fill in a couple blanks. So I was always interested in MESA because I loved math, and math became easy to me, and I always got good grades. And so when there was a program about mathematics, engineering, and science achievement, I thought that would be a good program to be a part of. But when it was talking about going to college, there were things that I learned from those students that I didn't realize. I didn't realize that you need to take 4 years of a foreign language through high school, from ninth grade all the way through 12th grade in order to help prepare yourself to be admitted to a UC school. I didn't know that when I was 13, right? But they told me. If it wasn't for the MESA program, I might have stopped taking foreign language before then because I wouldn't have thought it was necessary, as an example. Or I might not have pressed all the way through pre-calculus to 12th grade if I had known from a MESA advisor and counselor that you need to go as far as you can in math and science, right? So it was things like that that I was told, or things that biology didn't count, but chemistry and physics did. Things like that I wasn't aware of, and I learned. There was no one in my family to tell me that stuff. My college counselor, it's too late if you'd already dropped and you get to your college counselor in 10th or 11th grade and you've already stopped taking the most, aggressive math or science. You didn't know that. So getting to me in 8th and 9th grade was really, really good and helpful to me. So I got through high school, did apply to school, got into college, ended up going to Stanford. And when I was there, I decided to major in engineering. For all the wrong reasons. I never thought I wanted to be an engineer per se. I just saw the average starting salaries of engineers versus other majors and said, I'm good in math, so I probably should try to do that. And there was someone else I knew on the track team who was an industrial engineering major. And so I followed him because he was a senior when I was a freshman. He gave me advice. So I went into industrial engineering as my major as a freshman until I did it terribly in physics and realized that was not a class I was ever going to get through without a lot of pain.
Yes.
And when that happened, I promptly switched my major to economics. That's what happened.
Wow. Okay. So going through college, did you have influences that helped you get through, or was it tough?
Oh, yeah, it's tough. I think it depends. Well, I came from public schools, and were always easy to me. I always loved school and always got good grades. When I got to college, I thought that was going to continue. And I remember my first calculus exam, or I got my first class, and I got a C in that class, and that was the first time I've ever gotten a C in my life, and I was in shock. Right? And I just couldn't realize how there were all these kids that were there that did so much better than me in calculus when I thought I was a wizard at math. And that's when I learned it was going to be really competitive and I had to really partner with other people or get tutors or something if I was ever going to get through. So
Right.
freshman year was a rude awakening to how competitive it was and how much I need to study and how much I had to come up to speed if I was going to, get through and get good grades.
Yeah. Okay. So now you form your allegiances to your people who help you get through. You're getting through college. You get through college. Tell me a little bit about your decision to go to grad school.
Yeah, so it's funny because I remember those tough days like it was yesterday because those were pivotal moments. I literally was thinking, am I going to be able to get through Stanford my freshman year? And I was kind of embarrassed because I'd always been a wizard in school. Things were easy. And then I get there and it was really, really tough and hard. So having friends that I can connect with that, we work together to get through those classes really made a big difference for me. But
Yeah.
by the time I switched from engineering and switched to economics, econ major, econ was easy. It was business related. All that stuff made sense to me. And I loved those classes, loved it. And after that, college became a lot better. And having good friends to work through things with made it a lot better as well. And I think around, I don't know, junior year, I believe it was, I went to a session about business, had some graduate students, I think they were teaching it. And I learned that if you want it to be successful in business, it would be helpful if you had this thing called a master's in business administration called an MBA. I
This
didn't know
thing.
what it
Okay.
was. I didn't understand. I just learned that if you had one of those, and that was the moment when I really thought about graduate school. At that point, I
Yeah.
was just thinking about graduating from college. I had some friends that were pre-law that knew they were going to go to law school. They were pre-med that knew they were going to get them. But for me, I just started, focus on economics, try to get a role in business. And I learned if you had a master's in business, it would be really helpful. And so it was in that moment as a junior, I decided I was going to apply to business school.
Okay. I see the pattern going from high school to college and going from college into getting your master's. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the path you chose after college, getting into corporate America and making that choice to get a job. What led you, and I'm not sure if American Express was your first job out of school, but how did you get to you getting out of college to where you are now?
Okay. Well, I did have one role I did in between undergrad and grad school. I was in a management training program at Macy's. Started off based in San Francisco, and I was a manager in a branch store in San Leandro, California. It used to be the Bayfair Mall. I don't know if it's still there or not, but that's where I used to work.
It's not
And,
there.
and then I went to business school, and it was between my first and second year of business school that I ended up going to New York for the first time as a summer intern at American Express. I loved my time there, loved the challenges of the job, the company, the role, the people that I met, the environment, the company, and I ended up going back there full time after I finished school. And then I was there ever since. So that's what happened for me.
Okay, that you make it sound so easy.
Well, it wasn't easy. There were a lot of tough points during that period, but that's the summation of it all.
Okay, so tell me about some of the barriers you've had to overcome in
Well,
order to get there.
and this is my experience. I can't say that's the experience of every other MESA alum or current MESA student. I
Hmm.
grew up in Oakland in a neighborhood that was predominantly Black and not being in a real diverse environment until I went to college. And even when I got to college, I spent most of my time with my friends who were the guys that were in my fraternity, right? And that were similar to me. And it really wasn't until I got into a corporate role working with where I had to work with people who were completely diverse from all different backgrounds. And
Yeah,
that's when you really have to learn how to connect with other people, how to build alliances, build friendships, build relationships, share information, communicate effectively with people who are different from you. And that's a big part of being successful in whatever you do, in any field. You have to work with others, and they're not always going to be people that you chose. And I think that was a big adjustment for me into
yeah,
the workplace. And then also, the second part of it was being willing to share who I am personally, as opposed to having like a shield where I only would share certain information and I wouldn't bring my whole full personality and background to work.
okay. So you talked a little bit about tips on how to navigate kind of being the only one in the room and feeling comfortable. Do you have any other things? I mean, like specifically for women when they're not only the only minority, but also the only person who's a female in the room. Like, how are some things that what do you tell yourself when you do walk into that room? Like, how do you engage? Because sometimes it's hard. It's hard
Yes,
when you're new, and it's hard
yes.
when you're not familiar
Well,
with
I mean,
it.
it's something. I think it depends. I think it starts early. I would actually encourage if you're currently a student in college. I think it's important to try to spend time and get to know people who are different than you are. And I think that's really, really important to do. It's a wonderful time because you're on a college campus. You have so many people you can interact with. Of course, you can connect with people who are similar and have similar backgrounds and interests to you. But learning through others and understanding other people is a good way to do it. And I think it's
Yeah.
important, whether it's clubs or activities or I think it's important to do that when you're in school. When you finish school and you're working full time, you are required to deal with people who are have different backgrounds than you do. And so what you have to try to figure out is how you can remain authentic to who you are as a person, but then and be proud of that and uncompromising about who you are, but also
Yeah.
being willing to some degree to share with others who you are and also get to know them as well. You have to be open to other people if you want them to be open to you. It goes both ways. Everybody wants someone to understand them. The question is how hard do you work to try to understand others?
Okay. I definitely love that. Um, First of all, Danya, are there any questions in the chat? Let me take a little moment to break. Or does anybody want to ask any questions at this point before we kind of start diving into his career at American Express?
Okay, we have a hand raised. Felicia.
Yeah, I have a question. Hope you can hear me.
I can.
Yes.
Following up on bringing, your whole self to the room, was there like a pivot point when you realized how important that was in your
Oh
experience?
yeah.
How do you get to that point? Because that's a big step.
It is a
Thank
big
you.
step. I think it's easier now than it was in the past. But and the reason why I say that is because of social media. So many people share so much online that I think people were used to sharing. I mean, I grew up in an era where there was no social media, and so people really didn't know much about you unless you told them, for the most part. So I used to be very closed and private at work. I love connecting with people. I love being active. I love getting to know others, but I wouldn't tell them much about myself. And people would say, "What did you do on the weekend?" And I would just say, "Oh, I spent time with friends," or I wouldn't tell more details. I wouldn't tell them which movies I saw. I wouldn't tell them what concert I went to. I wouldn't tell them everything about what TV shows I watched because I assumed that they wouldn't watch my shows. And I was in a predominantly white environment. Not everyone worked at American Express was white, but 80% of the people were. So people would watch shows that I didn't pay attention to. They watch Friends, they watch Seinfeld. I know I'm dating myself, but they watch shows that I didn't pay attention to at all. And so everyone would sit around and talk about, did you see this? I would have nothing to say because I didn't contribute. People say, did you go see this movie? And maybe it wasn't a mainstream movie that I saw, right? I saw ones that were maybe more interesting to my culture that I would find more appealing, but I wouldn't talk about it broadly. What happened, and I always tried to focus on the work. And a pivotal moment for me to answer your question was, and I remember this because it was one of those moments in my career where I knew I had to change. I was a director level, which means I'd been at the company for, at that point, 4.5 years or so. I was managing a team of people. I had a team of, I'm trying to think how big it was, maybe 10 or 12 people at that time. And we had this thing to get 360-degree leadership feedback. So all the people you worked with as your peers and people who work for you can fill out information about you. And then you get a summary and you read it. It tells you things you're great at and things you can do better. And it's supposed to help make you a better leader. I was all for that. Asked everyone to give me feedback, all that. Feedback came back, was not very good. It was so bad that the human resources team requested time to meet with me. So that's never good when HR wants to talk to you.
No.
So I met with the HR person, and what they basically explained to me is, look, you're in this position for a reason. You obviously have earned the right to be in this job as a leader of this group. You get along really well with your boss. Your peers respect you, but your team members think that you're smart. They think you work hard, but they just feel like they don't really know you. They don't know anything about you. You don't have any personal pictures of your wife and your family in your office. You don't tell them much about what you do on the weekends. When you keep those conversations short and all you want to talk about is work. And so they feel like you're treating them like cogs in a machine. You're not really getting to know them and appreciate them as people. And because of that, you don't fully have their trust. You have their respect because of their knowledge, but not their trust as a person. And people are not going to work really hard and give them their full self to someone that they don't fully trust, that they don't believe has their best interest and understands them as a person. That's what I learned.
So that wasn't like your mentor or your sponsor. That was HR telling you that.
Yes. And my boss at the same, both of them. And so that was a big message. That was, unless you modify the way in which you lead and the way in which you communicate with other people, you're going to be limited as far as how much you can do in this role or at this company.
That's deep.
Yeah, that's a clear message. That was a pivotal point in my career. And then I started getting some feedback. I said, listen, and I was like, why don't you share more? And I would explain. I said, well, does everybody need to know what my daughter's name is? Like, what difference does it make? How does that change the work you have to do? But it was more of, well, they want to understand you and they want you to also understand them as people. Do you ever ask them about what they've done on the weekends and what's going on with their family and their personal life? Not to delve, but to show interest in who they are as a person. What are some of their interests outside of work? And be genuinely interested, not just asking the questions to check the box, right? And as more as you get to know and connect with people on a human level, the more they will be willing to work hard with you and for you. That was a pivotal moment for me. Some people understand that naturally. It didn't compute for me naturally at that time. So I had to completely change the way in which I thought about interacting with others at work, about how much I would share personally about my background and my life, and also how I would lead as a leader of people.
Wow, showed you cared.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
So
Kelly, people who know me now would never believe that, because over the years, I opened up and I changed my approach.
Wow, that's very impressive. Kelly, I think I saw your hand up. You still online?
Yeah, and then you answer my question, but I got another one. Based on your story you just told, how do you pay it forward, to young talent? And what's one way students today can prepare themselves for the type of situations that you encountered. What you
Yes. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, for me, what I realized, I knew it then because I was living it. And in retrospect, it's become even more clear that um, I just wanted to be judged and understood and appreciated for the content of the contribution I was giving to work. I didn't want anyone to think about anything else. Just were my marketing programs good? Was my presentation good? Did I write a good memo? Was my research grades? I put together the right charts and graphs to explain this issue. That's what I wanted people to judge me on. I didn't want people to think about, where I grew up or where I lived or what stuff I did on the weekend. To me, I thought that was irrelevant. It's about we're here to do great work for the company, is the way I thought about it. But that's not, it's not so black and white. That's not how it works in real life. People work with and they trust and they promote people they feel comfortable with. And I think that's important. I learned that the hard way. And so I realized that when you're a person of color and when you're a person who maybe didn't grow up in privilege and a person who is the first person who worked in a certain environment, whether it's business or engineering or law or anything that you do where the environment is not one that is more open to people of color, then sometimes you end up being the person who has to break through those barriers and explain to others about your culture, your background, because people might be unfamiliar, right? So, and that's a little bit of a burden you have to take forward at work, but it's important because if you do not, then you won't be fully included and embraced. And that's really what you want. So for me, I thought it was important and has been important to always spend time with and to share with groups of people of color or from first generation backgrounds about the things they should do to help prepare themselves when they go into a broader world where they can't control everyone they interact with. I think that's important. I think that starts in college. You can always find your people who have your interest, whatever that is, politically, socially, musically, activity-wise on campus. You can always do that. But you won't be able to always do that in life because you can't pick your boss. You can't pick the people on your team. You can't always pick your peers. So you have to be able to work with everyone. So you have to understand how other people think and feel. Sometimes you got to watch a movie, watch a TV show, listen to a podcast, go eat some food you wouldn't normally eat. Everything can't always be comfortable. And you do that early on so that later on you can have a broader breadth of experiences to be able to relate to for people. And I think that's important. I said no to a lot when I was in college, and I probably shouldn't have. People would ask me, do you want to go on a ski trip? I said, I'm never going skiing. Why would I go on the top of a mountain, put on some long sticks, wax them down, and then jump off and go down the mountain? That sounds like really dangerous. I would never do that. Now I love to ski. You just never know what would happen. So just things I thought I would never do. And every time some of my roommates would say, do you want to come home with me for Easter or Christmas? I always said no. Where I wish I would have said yes more often to get to know someone in their environment, spend time with others. They were opening themselves up to me, and I was closing the door as soon as it opened. And that's not a good thing to do.
Wow. Okay. Okay, before I go on to my next question, Danielle, do we have questions in the chat?
Not right now. Those were the two that we had. You can keep going.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so one other thing, somebody brought this up earlier. When you're in that environment, were you always as confident as you are now? And what helps you to build confidence when you're in those meetings in order to be able to just function and not hyperventilate?
Yeah, for whatever reason, I've always been self-assured and helped believe in myself, but there are different things over time that's helped me be that way. And I always try to encourage people to find those things in themselves. It helped that being good at something tells you that you're not terrible at everything. You're good at something.
Yeah.
Right? And I was an athlete. So I ran track in high school. Was an All-American. Our relay team were state champions. We were good, and I knew it. We were one of the top in the country, and I knew that. When I got to college, I said, hey, I may not be able to get an A or B in calculus, but I know I'm good at track. And so that was something I wanted to do and was really good at. So you have to find things that you're good at, whatever that is, the way to express yourself, whether that's writing, or whether that's acting, or whether that's being in a play, or whatever it is. You have to find things that you're good at that helps fulfill you and gives you confidence. And then you take that same energy and you bring it to things where maybe you're not as experienced and not as good, but if you work hard, maybe you can master something new. I think that part is important. And then when I was in college, I would say freshman year rocked me. I was having a good time. I was meeting people socially. I loved the experience, but I was, not doing well in school at all. And it wasn't until I got with a group of guys that was similar to me, and I pledged and joined that fraternity. And there were other guys that I connected and bonded with, that I could be honest with, and we helped each other. And that gave me a lot of confidence and it helped me get through school together. And it really changed who I was as a person, honestly.
Okay. And I saw a couple questions in the chat. You want to read them, Danielle?
We have a question from Helen. She says, thank you for sharing earlier about your reflections as a leader. How do you stay open to the feedback, even when it makes you uncomfortable or you may not agree with it? Even as a student, were there moments you had to reflect?
Yes, for sure. I mean, you have to be open to feedback if it's coming from a person that has your best interest in mind. If it's somebody who's just trying to hate on you or someone who's just trying to tear you down, that's not helpful. When there's somebody who has your best interest in mind that you respect or you trust and they tell you something, you got to listen. You got to listen. And I think from a work perspective, when I got that feedback from the leader in HR, Human Resources, and also from my direct leader, they delivered it in a way that said, hey, we think you're good and we like you and we think you're good for this leadership role you're in. But if you really want to be successful in your career, you need to consider modifying some things. They weren't trying to get me out of the company. They were trying to help me be better in my roles and give me a chance to potentially be successful and potentially progress. So I had to be open to that feedback. So if it comes from the right person in the right way, you got to be open to it.
Okay, thank you. One thing that I know females struggle a little bit with is imposter syndrome. And I'm assuming that you're pretty confident, so you probably don't ever have to
No, I
deal with
get the
that type of
imposter
stuff.
syndrome
But
when
what do
you
you think
don't.
of that?
Yeah, you believe maybe that you don't belong in that room and in that place, and you're not
Yeah,
sure why you're there.
yeah.
That can happen to anyone at any time.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that
how do you deal
happens.
with that?
And sometimes you start to wonder. But then sometimes you get into those rooms and you realize, well, the people there are not that much better than you are. You just didn't know because you weren't in the room. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
they're not. It's not like they have some infinite wisdom that you didn't know, or it is. Sometimes they just have more experience. Sometimes they had somebody else who coached them through it, right? So
Yeah.
once you get there, you have to watch and listen, and take mental notes, and then realize, okay, here's what I might need to do to prep for the next time I get in the room. This is what I do, or next time I get that opportunity, this is what I do.
Okay, so speaking of not being in the room, let's talk a little bit about how mentorship or mentors and sponsorship has been a part of your journey. Do you have mentors and do you have a lot of them, or do you use sponsors? How do you talk about that a little bit?
Okay, well, I look at mentorship and sponsorship very differently. A mentor is where someone that you spend consistent, periodic time with that gives you coaching and advice that can be helpful to you in what you're trying to pursue. And most of the time, people think a mentor is someone who's done exactly what they're doing, who's been more successful, who's probably older than they are. But not always, but could be. But I actually think of mentoring differently. I think it's anyone who can give you helpful advice to get you through what you're trying to get through, or to get you to a place you're trying to go. And I explain that because one of the many mentors have had in my career has been someone who was an executive assistant in my company, someone who worked for another senior leader, who just took it upon herself in the early parts of my career to pull me aside and say, listen, young man, you seem to be working hard to be really bright, but watch out for this and watch out for that, and don't make this mistake. And here's somebody I think you should connect with. And listening to her, she was not a powerful person in terms of her role within the company, but she gave me some powerful advice and counsel at key moments that really made a difference in how I thought about working my career. And so she's someone that I treasured. She was older than me in age, but not necessarily in her role within the company, but she gave me great advice. And so I've always looked at her as a mentor. Now, over the years, when I was more successful, moved up, whatever, our relationship changed. But in those early years, she was really, really helpful to me, right? So it doesn't all, you never know where it's going to come from. You have to be open to people who are trying to help you and to listen to them and to work with them to the extent that you can. Sponsorship is something different. Sponsorship is when there's someone definitely more influential than you are, and it's someone who's willing to put their credibility on the line to try to help you. And you may or may not know that they're doing it, and you cannot necessarily ask them for sponsorship. Sponsorship is like granted. It's not like you can apply for it. It's something that happens based on your normal working interactions by you being who you are. And someone says, you know what, I think that Kelly, I think that Jose, I think that Julia would be excellent for this particular role. We should put them on this project team because I think that'll be a great experience for this person because I've seen how he or she has done this before, and I think they'll be excellent at that project. You may not know. That person may not ever, you may not ever ask them to do it. You may not know that project team is being formed, but that person has seen you and your work in the past and recommends you for an opportunity. That's real sponsorship.
Okay. Do you even, or does one even have to have a relationship with the sponsor for them to know you or your abilities?
No, you do not. I have sponsored people that don't really know that I was in their corner.
Wow. Okay. So talk a little bit about people who approach you and ask you to be their they want a mentorship relationship. Um, and I'm thinking about the people who are just starting off in their careers and they're thinking, oh, I want to get a mentor. So how do you advise them to approach one to become a mentor?
Well, I almost always say no, but the reason why is it's just time, because that's
Right.
a commitment to have consistent, time with an individual, and time is something that's scarce. And I don't always have it to share, so I almost always say no. However, I do, or I may meet with someone for one time for one event or one session to talk about something, but not committing. I'm going to do that every week or every month, right? Which is what mentors do. Mentors will say, "Oh, I meet with you every Tuesday. We get coffee once a month, whatever." And when I'm leading an organization with 50,000 people in the company, I can't do that. I just, it's not fair to others to pick out certain people to do that. But what I
Yeah.
chose to do is to talk to people in groups. And that's something I care a lot about, is finding groups of people and opportunities to influence and interact with 20 or 30 or 40 people at a time. And maybe half of them or 10% of them, whatever, would learn something that could be helpful because you're not going to reach everyone. But that's what I would try to do, is try to use the advantage of numbers.
Okay, so would you say it's a lot better for a person to approach you and basically say, "Hey, will you come talk to a group of us?"
Yeah.
Versus the one-on-one. Okay,
For
so I
me,
think that's something
that's
that,
something I'd be more likely to do. But also, a mentorship is important because people are always focusing on what they can get from the person that they're mentoring. And I'll tell you one of the best relationships I had it's many years ago. There was a senior guy at the company who said to me, we were in this last session and in this cross-divisional meeting, and you were a part of it. You were one of the more junior people, but you made some comments I thought were really helpful. So we should grab lunch sometimes, right? And that was an invitation, right? And I jumped on that because he was a division president. I was like an individual contributor, and he wanted to connect. So I went to him for lunch. And so, of course, I'm thinking most people would think, what are all the things I can ask the senior leader that I can learn about from him, right? But the most powerful thing is, what is it that you can tell this senior leader that can be helpful to him that he doesn't already know? Then
wow.
it's mutually beneficial. So what I
Yeah,
could
because
tell
they'd
him
be
is
open to hear it.
exactly. So over time, we had lunch more than once, and it actually formed a good relationship. But what he was helpful to him was to know things that people on the ground at lower levels thought about his unit, his division, that he would never get privy to because everyone would try to hide information because he's the head of the division.
Wow.
So I could tell
Yeah.
him, hey, I've been hearing about XYZ going on in your area. This is what people are saying. Did you know that? Is that true? Is that what you want people to say? It was helpful for him to be able to have some ears on the ground to give them a sense of what was going on. That was helpful. So in some ways, he would look forward to our conversation because he might learn something he didn't already know. Meanwhile, I was looking forward so I can, get some support and wisdom from his experience. So I think if
Yeah.
you think about one or two ways you might be able to help someone that you want to mentor you, then it could be more beneficial. Of course, they're going to do most of the help. They're the ones who have the most experience and more senior, whatever. But if you think of it two ways, then it's not like you're always just like sucking energy out of another person.
I love that. Feedback is a gift. So that just, yeah, sometimes people don't think about it. They think about it as one way. But yeah, if someone comes to me and says, hey, I have some insight that might help you, you know, do things a little bit different or do things a little bit better, I think that's a good exchange. And I'd make time for that definitely too.
Good.
So any questions in the chat that I want to make sure I capture before I go on to the next questions?
Jen, a two-part question. One, what were your track events? And two, I have an idea.
I'm looking for
think-
Jen. I can't. Where's Jen? Are you asking for her? I can't see.
Can you hear me?
I can hear
It's
you. I
Danielle.
just can't see Jen.
Jen. No, I'm
Oh.
asking for myself.
Oh, okay, good. I can tell you. Yeah, no problem.
I'm asking for myself.
All right.
What were your track events? And I have a bright idea, and I think that you and I should organize the first MESA field day.
Okay. Well, I used to run the 400 meters. That was my event, open 400. And I also ran both relays, the 4x1 and the 4x4.
Okay. I think I might be faster than you.
Oh, you probably are now.
You are throwing down the gauntlet.
Okay. Mindy, I think Mindy has a question.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a question. First of all, thank you, Anre. This has been incredible so far. A lot of the people on the call are MESA directors, MESA students, MESA alumni, right? All
Yes.
of us. Can you talk a little bit more about the direct impact MESA had on you growing up, and like what do you think the lasting impact has on you today?
Okay. Well, MESA was pivotal to me. That's why when Danielle reached out to me on LinkedIn, I responded right away because MESA put me on a path at a time when I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have that interaction. I mean, you have to understand I was a 13-year-old kid in the 8th grade, or 12 or 13 years old, 8th grade, knew I got good grades in school, wanted to go to college, had no idea what that looked like and what it meant to go to college, and have to get connected with students who are 20, 21, 22 that are coming to tell a teenager, this is what you need to do in order to go to college. Let me see the classes you're taking. This is what you should take next semester. My mother couldn't do that. As much as she loved me, as she wanted me to go to college, she'd never been and she wasn't sure. And back then there was no internet to be able to Google it and go to ChatGPT and have it all spelled out to you. Didn't happen back then. So to have someone sit with me and to go through that and to counsel me, and it was someone who was a college student I looked up to who was brown, made a huge difference in my life. And they stayed after. We wouldn't just meet one time. It was, every week or every 2 weeks, whatever it was consistent. So that was helpful. It was also helpful to be in a cohort of other smart kids who wanted better things themselves in the future. Because I grew up in public school, and not everybody in my public school wanted to go to college. I mean, that was not what happened in Oakland public schools when I was there, right? And it wasn't always cool to be studious, right? So carrying a bunch of books home was not necessarily the way to get the girls when I was 13 or 14. So some people wouldn't want everybody to know how hard they were working in class. So MESA actually made it good to be around other people of color who were working hard to better themselves, who wanted to go to college. It was good to be connected with college students who could help me through it. And it just really made a big difference in my life. And I was telling Danielle that back when I was in MESA, I have no idea what happens now. You used to be able to submit your report card and get a check for your grades. So based on every A and every B you got a certain amount of money. So I would look forward to those MESA interactions and say, here's how I did last trimester, to be able to get a check back from MESA. which is extra spending money. That was a motivation to another motivation. All those things really made a difference. It was pivotal. It helped put me on the right path, between 9th, 10th, 11th grade. So when I applied for college, I had the right transcript.
Thank you.
Pivotal. And you also meet other people who have similar interests, and so that motivates you. You're not the only nerd who wants to do better.
I love that. All right. Mindy, any more?
Yes, Kelly has a question. She said, what do you wish more students of color or first-gen students knew when they enter high-impact fields?
High impact, what do you mean, post-college? Okay. I think the most important thing is to believe in yourself. I think is important, and have confidence that all the things you've done to get you up to that point can help you be successful into the future. To be able to connect with others is really, really important. You don't want to be on an island in your new work environment, trying to do it all yourself. You have to be able to connect with other people. And everyone thinks, they say, okay, I need to connect with another woman because I'm a woman. I need to connect with another person who's Hispanic because I'm Hispanic. That's not true. You have to connect. You have to find places that are common. You have a cat. Who else in your team has a cat? Right? That could be it. It could be you have an animal. Who else? You have a kid. Who else has a kid? Right? That could be a thing that's common. You like the Golden State Warriors. Who else likes the Golden State Warriors? That could be your thing in common. It's about finding things in common with other people that you can build a relationship and build a trust with. That's what you have to focus on.
Okay. Any other questions from the chat?
Not right now.
Okay.
Okay. So one person sent a pre-question. They wanted to know a little bit more about American Express and what kind of resources do they have to help students, whether it's internships, scholarships, or things like that. What do you guys
That's
offer?
very good. Yeah. So American Express has a huge summer internship program. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 to 200 interns in the U.S. every year.
Wow.
So it's a big program. We usually hire full-time people. Most of our full-time hires come from former interns. Not all of them, but that's like the best way to get into the company post-college, is to go through the internship program. And it's in all disciplines. It's not just in engineering or science. It could be in analytical, finance, marketing. There are a lot of different roles that people can move into. But the summer internship program is the biggest thing. We don't just interview on certain campuses. We actually make it available. You can apply online. You can get an interview virtually, and then potentially get called in to meet with someone in person. So that's the way it's done. And it happens usually in the fall semester, usually for the summer internships, usually in the fall, sometimes as late as January. But by this time in April and May, all the internship program is generally filled by now.
Okay, and just to make sure, when you talk about the internships locations, are they all over the US or are they
Yes,
mostly
they are.
where you are?
They are.
Okay.
No, they're not all in New York. New York is one of the primary locations, but we have operations in Phoenix, Arizona, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Sunrise, Florida. There's some other locations where we also have big groups of people. And then there are some roles you can do virtually. Not a lot, but there are some.
Okay. And I think somebody asked about, do they hire engineering interns?
Absolutely. So as part of
Okay.
my most recent role, I oversee all of technology, which included all the engineers that we have in our tech department. And yes, we hired a lot of tech engineers. And we went through one of the things we did is went to an organization called, I can't think of the name of it. It's one for Hispanic engineers and one for Black engineers, and then another one for women in technology. We go to all those organizations looking for people who have great experience that have an interest in joining a company in technology.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so if there's no more questions in the chat and nobody's signing up to take themselves off mute, I'm going to ask you the standard question that people ask, which is, if you
Mindy
had
has
to
her
go.
hand up too.
I have another
Oh,
question.
okay,
Uh,
okay.
Can you talk a little bit about the current environment here in the United States, with all things
That's
happening with the
exactly what I was gonna
administration,
ask.
all things happening with the administration, and how that's impacting you as an individual, if you're comfortable sharing that, as well as how it's impacting American Express or any other companies that you're aware of, and
Well,
how that's also affecting potential hiring.
yeah. Well, what I think is important, which is, and I can say this because I've been in the workforce for a long period of time, is you never know what's happening in the external environment. You don't always get a chance to choose. Things just happen, whether it's, a housing crisis or the global financial crisis that happened in 2008, whether it's something happened in 9/11 when the country comes to a halt and then a big recession begins. You just don't really know what's happening, politically. You can't always choose. But the thing that you have to try to focus on are the things you can control, which is not always easy. What are the things that what can you personally do to further what you're trying to achieve? That's what you can focus on. And I think that's the most important thing. Where you are in school, where you are at work, where you are in your career, what are the things that you can do? Because things happening around you don't have as much influence on. And so that's what I've always looked at it. Try not to, and even though there are really important things happening in society, in the world, but you have to kind of take all that stuff in, but really focus on what you can do to better your situation. That's what I've always tried to do.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, so I know we're running up against 1 o'clock, so we're
Okay.
going to kind of wrap up, but I do have two things. So one question I'll ask you, and then I'll leave it for you to share anything you want to share. Being at American Express, which is kind of a finance company, and we are all, aiming to achieve that wealth. What wealth tips can you give us that'll help us along the journey? Any tips about that to help us become successful?
Yeah, I will share something, which it may seem counterintuitive, but it's the way I've always tried to live my life, which is always stay within your means, whatever that is, whatever that means, and always save for a rainy day. Always. And people will say, well, when I have more money, I can save. I've never lived that way. When I didn't have any money, I still saved a bit. If I got $5 for mowing someone's lawn, I put $1 aside and spend $4. And then when something happened later, I had $1 to fall back on. That's just the way I've thought about it. I've always thought that way. Because things do change and things happen in life and you never know. Sometimes it's local, sometimes it's geopolitical. You don't know, but you want to make sure that you try to prepare yourself as best you can. So that kind of that financial view of always trying to work within your means and saving for a rainy day is always something I've kept with me, even from the beginning.
Okay, that's a good wealth tip. And any other last parting tips you want to share with us?
Well, I think I will say I'm very proud MESA alum. I am. I hope that you all appreciate the program and what it's done for you and what it can do for other people. I think programs like MESA are critical for encouraging and enabling people who are first generation or people of color who may not have others to give them the background they need to be able to pursue their education, to better their life and their career for their family and for others in their community. I think it's important. I love MESA. I love what it did for me. And I want to encourage the other people to participate. And that's something that's really made a difference for me. And I also think it's important to try to share with other people in whatever capacity, hopefully in a group, about some of the tips that it takes to persevere and to be successful through school and into your career in life. So, which is what I tried to do today, is sharing some of my background and hopefully something that you've heard, even if it's one little piece was helpful to you, then this was time well spent.
Thank you. Your light shines through brightly. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for your tips. Thank you for your knowledge. I think I can speak for everybody and say that we all enjoyed it. So thank you so much, Andre.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you
thank you
so much. And
Okay,
thank you,
enjoy.
Anita.
Yes. Well, enjoy the rest of the day, everyone.
And go
Thank you for having me.
Warriors. All
Yes.
right. Talk to you later. Have a safe travel.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.